Korean family had dreamed of moving to the United States. However, they were unable to get a visa. They were forced to stop in Colombia to wait for another opportunity. As soon as they arrived at the Colombian airport, the family encountered their first incident. Locals pushed and shoved. Panic spread. An armed robber appeared and snatched Song Guk-hee's mother's handbag. Then the robber jumped on a motorbike and sped away. Song Guk-hee immediately chased after him, but how could he catch up with a motorbike on bare feet? He could only watch helplessly as the bag, which contained all his money and personal documents, disappeared into the dust. This was the first lesson Colombia had taught them. At that point, all their assets and documents had been stolen. Song Guk-hee's family was in dire straits in a foreign land. Their only hope then was Song Guk-hee's father. When he had been young, he had been a soldier, stationed abroad, and had fought in the Vietnam War. According to him, during the war, he had saved the life of a soldier under his command named Kim Jong-hun. That soldier was currently living in Colombia. Song Guk-hee's father firmly believed that the person he had saved would help the family in that time of need. Song Guk-hee's family quickly went to Kim Jong-hun's address in Colombia in the hope of receiving help. However, when they actually met again, Kim Jong-un was extremely cold and rude. He loudly blamed Song Guk-hee's father. "Didn't I almost lose my life because of you? Have you forgotten?" The atmosphere became tense, but after venting all his dissatisfaction, Kim Jong-un still couldn't bear to turn away. Because of the old friendship, he decided to help Song Guk-hee's family. Kim Jong-un was currently in the business of importing Korean clothing in Colombia. To ensure that the goods were cleared on time, Kim Jong-un needed to maintain a close relationship with the local customs. For this reason, Kim Jong-un married the daughter of a high-ranking customs official. Thanks to this relationship, he could easily coordinate imports. Korean merchants who came to do business here had to bow down and depend on Kim Jong-un to maintain a stable supply of goods. Song Guk-hee's entire family was brought to Kim Jong-un's clothing store. Initially, Kim Jong-un planned to keep Song Guk-hee's father to work there. However, the one who really had the final say was Kim Jong-un's wife. She was not pleased with Song Guk-hee's father, but was pleased with Song Guk-hee. She said, "The one who will work here is that young man." And so Song Guk-hee started working as a porter at the store. His mother quickly found a job as a seamstress in the local area. When she was young, she worked as a garment worker in a Korean factory. It was also there that she met and married Song Guk-hee's father. Song Guk-hee's father's past was gradually revealed. He used to run a small factory in Korea. However, the business failed and he went bankrupt. He was heavily in debt. However, he always insisted that the failure was not his fault, but the fault of the state and society. When he arrived in Colombia, Song Guk-hee's father did not change. Although his son and wife worked hard every day to maintain their lives, he chose to live a life of debauchery. All he cares about is drinking and getting into fights. He even quarreled with other Korean immigrants here. In complete contrast, Song Guk-hee gradually adapted to his new life. He accepted the harsh reality of Colombia and tried his best not to become a burden to his mother. He learned to observe, listen, and gradually understood the chaotic living environment there. Time flied. In the blink of an eye, it was 2000. Although the family was not well off, it was more stable. However, Song Guk-hee always had plans in mind to change his life. Unexpectedly, an unexpected opportunity fell from the sky. As the clothing smuggling route became increasingly dangerous, Kim Jong-un decided to hire armed bodyguards to escort the goods. To monitor this route, he needed someone trustworthy, and he targeted Song Guk-hee. Kim Jong-un began to proactively approach and win Song Guk-hee's favor. He recounted his entrepreneurial past with pride. At first, he used his military pension to start a small business. He only sold women's underwear. Step by step, he built relationships and rose to become a leader in the Korean business community in Colombia. While they were chatting, a local man approached Kim Jong-un and started a friendly conversation. Through the conversation, Song Guk-hee knew that this person's name was Alejandro, a famous figure in the Colombian business community. People rumored that Alejandro had a close relationship with many high-ranking officials here. Even Kim Jong-un had to be humble, calling Alejandro by intimate nicknames. Although Kim Jong-un was still ridiculed by him as cockroach, the relationship between the two could be considered friends at the drinking table. But in reality, it was still a relationship of mutual exploitation. Song Guk-hee secretly remembered the name Alejandro, feeling that he was a person of great influence in the industry. After the meeting, Kim Jong-un began to paint a promising future for Song Guk-hee. He commented that Song Guk-hee was not like other Koreans here, especially not like his lazy father. Kim Jong-un's eyes shone with expectation. He said that he believed Song Guk-hee would be special. Finally, he assigned Song Guk-hee a special mission to be the supervisor for the upcoming shipment and armed transport with a high level of risk. This was Song Guk-hee's chance to assert his position and show his true abilities. Before the shipment began, Kim Jong-un personally introduced Song Guk-hee to the two people who would be accompanying him. The first was Xavier, a Colombian driver who knew every nook and cranny of the area. The second was Soo-young, an expert with many years of experience in smuggling routes. He was responsible for negotiating and bribing bribing customs if necessary. Soo-young explained to Guk-hee the rules of smuggling in Colombia. When goods imported from Korea, such as clothing, arrived at port, only 1% of the actual quantity was declared. The remaining 99% were smuggled goods that were hidden. The reason was that if declared correctly, the tax that had to be paid would make the profit almost zero. Customs knew this, but still turned a blind eye because Kim Jong-un was always generous with bribes from top to bottom. According to Soo-young, most corrupt officials at customs accepted to this unwritten rule simply because taxes were money paid into the national budget and bribes went straight into their personal pockets. As long as the benefits were guaranteed, the transportation route still went smoothly. However, if they accidentally encountered a truly honest official on the way, the group would be in big trouble. Unfortunately, on Song Guk-hee's first shipment, they encountered just such an official. The group was stopped in the middle of the road. The prosecution officer carrying a weapon asked them to get out of the car for inspection. This was Song Guk-hee's first time in such a situation. Panicked when faced with guns and cold eyes, Soo-young tried to step forward to negotiate. Song Guk-hee, unable to bear the pressure, recklessly stepped on the gas and ran away. After stepping on the gas and running away, Song Guk-hee tried to keep a steady grip on the steering wheel, but immediately, a bullet from behind pierced the tire. The car swerved, lost control, and crashed straight into a signpost on the side of the road. Unable to move any further, Song Guk-hee quickly jumped out of the car. He quickly grabbed the scattered packages, mostly underwear, and ran away. The only thought in his mind was, I can't let Kim Jong-un down. But it was too late. Song Guk-hee was quickly arrested. He was dragged to the police station, brutally beaten, and locked in a cell. He thought everything was over. However, the unexpected happened. Not long after, Kim Jong-un himself appeared at the prison. When he saw Song Guk-hee, Kim Jong-un burst out laughing. Song Guk-hee quickly took out the 2 remaining pairs of underwear, hid them in his shirt, and gave them to him as a token of loyalty. Kim Jong-un laughed out loud. Are you crazy? What the hell is this? Put it away. Those bastards dared to beat the man up like this. Thanks to his close relationship with customs and police system, Kim Jong-un quickly handled everything smoothly. Not only did he rescue Song Guk-hee, but Kim Jong-un also recovered most of the confiscated goods. This incident made Kim Jong-un trust Song Guk-hee even more. From a porter, he stepped into the underworld, where power is exchanged for loyalty and tenacity. After the successful transport of goods and his display of absolute loyalty, Song Guk-hee was gradually brought into the inner circle by Kim Jong-un. He began to contact key figures in the Korean merchant network in Colombia. One of them was Kim Jong-un's longtime friend, a former acupuncturist who now makes money by smuggling jade. There was also Kim Jong-un's relative. He was not highly educated and had a hot temper. He mainly made a living by running a karaoke bar. The third person is Soo-young, who accompanied Song Guk-hee on the first shipment. He was a Korean exchange student who graduated from Korea University and was sent to Colombia to work for a Korean car company. But after the financial crisis, he was fired and forced to enter the smuggling world to survive. Soo-young always prided himself on being educated. He was surrounded by people who graduated from Korea University like him. Because of that, he and little Kim hated each other. One looked down on low education, the other looked down on the type of person who was arrogantly intellectual. One day, Soo-young deliberately mocked Song Guk-hee when he saw that little Kim had sent him to monitor him. He said, if little Kim is suspicious, why didn't he come and monitor himself? It's true that idleness breeds trouble. Little Kim got mad when he heard that. He called Soo-young a brat. The two of them almost got into a fight if Kim Jong-un hadn't stepped in to stop them. But both sides had been annoyed with each other for a long time. If they didn't fight this time, there would be a next time. Not long after, Soo-young's junior secretly asked Song Guk-hee for help with smuggling, but Song Guk-hee flatly refused. Unexpectedly, while they were talking, Soo-young's junior got into a fight with little Kim's junior at a karaoke bar. One of Soo-young's bespectacled juniors almost pulled out a gun. The incident was later settled. After this, Kim Jong-un looked down on Soo-young and little Kim even more, who only knew how to cause trouble. On the contrary, Kim Jong-un felt more sympathy for Song Guk-hee, the only one who kept a gentle attitude and did not cause trouble. He smiled and said, from now on, just call me uncle. Song Guk-hee tactfully replied, you will call me that later, but for now, please call me boss. This tactfulness made Kim Jong-un feel even more sympathy for Song Guk-hee. Kim Jong-un also said that he hoped Song Guk-hee could survive and move to District 6. Meanwhile, Soo-young was preparing a big plan, importing a batch of down jackets to Colombia to sell. After hearing this, Soo-young's subordinates were surprised. How could down jackets be sold in a country that was hot all year round? Soo-young confidently replied that the hotter the place, the more afraid of the cold people were. He said that just a few cold days a year were enough for people to buy coats, and that this new kind of product was even more likely to attract customers. But Soo-young was still dependent on Kim Jong-un's delivery system. This made him feel control, and he didn't want to be controlled like that forever. Coincidentally, Song Guk-hee was asked by little Kim to deliver an empty, fully loaded gun to Soo-young. The message was clear like a warning. With the gun in hand, Soo-young's attitude attitude changed. He began to manipulate Song Guk-hee. He said that Kim Jong-un was only using Song Guk-hee's loyalty for his own benefit. At some point, Song Guk-hee would be thrown away like a pawn. At the same time, Kim Jong-un was also suspicious of Soo-young. He guessed that in the upcoming shipment, Soo-young would try to sneak his own goods into the general shipment. To test Song Guk-hee's loyalty, Kim Jong-un decided to play a trick. He told Song Guk-hee, "My goods are the boxes with the blue labels. Pull that box back first." In fact, his real goods were the boxes with the orange labels. If Song Guk-hee really helped Soo-young smuggle, he would pull the wrong goods and be caught. If Song Guk-hee didn't help, it would also prove his absolute loyalty. Kim Jong-un didn't trust Song Guk-hee completely. His deliberate mislabeling of the color of the goods was not only a test but also a way to control the situation. He thought that if Song Guk-hee really helped Soo-young, he would pull the worthless boxes. The orange boxes containing real down jackets would be transported to him by a local driver. He would then keep all the goods and contact the Korean factory to buy the whole batch. Kim Jong-un's calculations were meticulous, showing his depth and carefulness. But when he opened the boxes with blue labels on the day of delivery, he was completely stunned. Inside were only cheap underwear, not the down jackets he had expected. As it turned out, Song Guk-hee had guessed Kim Jong-un's entire scheme. He understood that the information about the label color was just a test and did not want to be a pawn for either side. Instead of believing Kim Jong-un's advice, he inspected the shipment himself. Then he deliberately repasted the orange labels on the real boxes and personally delivered them to Soo-young. The down jackets immediately created a fever when they were released to the market. The goods sold very well. Profits skyrocketed. Even the native Colombian merchants could not compete and could only stand by and watch. Faced with this result, Soo-young took the initiative to meet Kim Jong-un and propose a peace. The two sides agreed to split the profits at a ratio of 6-4. The secret war ended, at least temporarily. After the great success of the down jackets, Song Guk-hee officially left Kim Jong-un's control and switched to working for Soo-young. Although he still saw Kim Jong-un occasionally, there was only awkwardness between them now. The money Song Guk-hee earned from that shipment was enough for him to buy a house in the local area. Soo-young could not hide his generosity and gave Song Guk-hee a valuable gift. When Song Guk-hee asked, "It looks expensive," Soo-young smiled and replied, "I gave it to Song Guk-hee because it was expensive. I can't give a good brother like Song Guk-hee something cheap." A big dream began to form in Song Guk-hee's heart. He didn't want to be a smuggler for the rest of his life. He wanted to legalize his business, build a luxury shopping mall in Colombia where South Americans would go crazy for Korean fashion. However, not everyone supported his plan. While Song Guk-hee was quietly preparing, his opponents began to act. Alejandro, a former Colombian merchant tycoon, could not bear to lose power to a Korean. He secretly bribed customs officials to confiscate all the goods of the Korean merchants on the pretext of smuggling. Not long after, Soo-young's shipment, worth 400 million won, was seized. All of Song Guk-hee's 200 million won invested in the shipment also disappeared. Not stopping there, other Korean merchants were also implicated. They had pooled their capital to import goods for Christmas, and now they were all on the verge of bankruptcy. After losing a large sum of money due to the confiscation of the shipment, Song Guk-hee had just returned home when an unexpected incident occurred. Song Guk-hee's father appeared after a long period of absence with a sullen appearance. He did not apologize or ask questions. Instead, he asked his son to give him the bag containing the remaining money. He said, "Song Guk-hee can start over." "Now, Song Guk-hee, give him the money." The father and son struggled tensely. In the confusion, Song Guk-hee's father did not hesitate and fired at his son. Fortunately, Song Guk-hee dodged. Song Guk-hee's father took the opportunity to grab the bag of money and run away. Right outside the door, one of his accomplices was waiting in a car to catch him and escape. Guk-hee tried to chase after him, but while he was following closely, a strange motorbike rushed in from the opposite direction. Not wanting to cause a fatal accident, Song Guk-hee was forced to turn the wheel sharply. He crashed into a fire hydrant on the side of the road. The other car took advantage of the opportunity to escape, but Song Guk-hee's father didn't get far. In the car, the woman who was with him suddenly pulled out a gun and shot him dead on the spot. The reason was simple. The money was already in her hands and Song Guk-hee's father was now just a burden. Before he died, Song Guk-hee's father still didn't say a word of apology to his son. His mouth only repeated one word: money. After his father's death, Song Guk-hee returned to the merchant house in a heavy heart. He declared to everyone that he would compensate for the lost money and goods. But before he could finish his sentence, an angry merchant rushed over and beat him. Song Guk-hee didn't respond. He just silently endured the beating and left. Song Guk-hee's father's funeral was held in a cold atmosphere. No one came to pay their respects. The funeral ended without a single farewell, except for the wind. Afterwards, Soo-young went to see Song Guk-hee. He gave him sincere advice. Song Guk-hee should leave Colombia for a while. This is your only way to survive. But Song Guk-hee had only one thought in mind at that time. The missing shipment was currently in Alejandro's Alejandro's warehouse. Song Guk-hee was not willing to run away. That night, he decided to break into Alejandro's warehouse. Song Guk-hee disguised himself as a trusted subordinate. He then approached the warehouse manager and said that he was sent by Alejandro to receive the goods. While the manager was still suspicious, a guard heard the noise and rushed out. He pulled out a gun and shouted. Song Guk-hee dodged bullets repeatedly, reacting like a trained professional. When the last bullet was fired, Song Guk-hee immediately closed in. He then knocked out the guard with just a few powerful punches. Song Guk-hee quickly gathered some of the goods and escaped under the cover of darkness. After he had retrieved some of the goods from Alejandro's warehouse, Song Guk-hee immediately delivered them to the merchants to help them keep up with their Christmas business. The shipment was incomplete, but it was enough to save them temporarily. However, in Colombia, people didn't kill each other on Christmas, but that didn't mean everything would be safe afterwards. Alejandro certainly wouldn't let this go. The bespectacled man seemed worried about Song Guk-hee's safety. On the contrary, Soo-young was cold and indifferent. After all, Soo-young had never considered Song Guk-hee a true brother. Kim Jong-un, as someone who had had a deep relationship with Alejandro, decided to meet him to negotiate. But before Kim Jong-un could say anything, Alejandro became angry. He pointed a gun at Kim Jong-un's head and shouted, "It's Kim Jong-un's dog." He robbed Alejandro's warehouse. At the same time, a group of assassins were also secretly hunting Song Guk-hee. The situation was getting more and more dangerous. However, just as Kim Jong-un and Alejandro were sitting down to discuss, Song Guk-hee suddenly appeared in front of the two. He walked up, calmly looked at Alejandro and said, "I won't give a single cent to a thief like Alejandro, and Song Guk-hee won't kneel either." He continued to reveal that he had paid double the amount to hire the assassin that Alejandro had sent to kill him. Immediately after, an explosion rang out. Alejandro was shot dead on the spot. Kim Jong-un stood there, stunned, and asked, "What the hell did Song Guk-hee just do?" Song Guk-hee just looked at him and said, "You have to survive. You still have to move to the 6th ward like he said." After Alejandro's death, Song Guk-hee did not miss the opportunity. He immediately contacted the man with glasses, who had deep connections with the officials. The man with glasses represented Song Guk-hee to meet Carlos, the customs official who had been bribed by Alejandro. With a calm expression, the man with glasses initiated negotiations. He placed a box of cookies on the table. Carlos opened it. Inside was a wad of cash. The message was clear. If Carlos cooperated, he would continue to be protected and receive direct benefits. If not, public opinion would dig up the connection between Carlos and Alejandro. Carlos was angry at first, thinking this was a threat, but when he saw the money in the box, his eyes gradually softened. Song Guk-hee understood the Colombian system. Taxes were for the state, but bribes were what officials really cared about. In just a few days, Song Guk-hee had re-established the entire network of relations with border crossings and checkpoints. He replaced Alejandro in both influence and network of interests. At the same time, he had people track down the man who killed his father and killed her. Now Song Guk-hee was no longer a hired hand or a dependent. He had become the real head of the Korean merchant network in Colombia. 3 years passed. The political winds in Colombia began to change. The National Assembly passed a new bill, the anti-smuggling law. This law was tougher than any previous law and directly threatened the underground operations of the entire Korean merchant community. Song Guk-hee realized that times had changed. He was no longer interested in smuggling. He decided to withdraw from his old line and began planning to convert to a legal business. His goal was to build a high-end shopping mall that would sell officially imported goods from South Korea. This model would not only ensure profits, but also help him avoid increasingly stringent government crackdowns. However, the idea was not approved by everyone. Soo-young strongly objected. He did not want to give up the large profits from the familiar smuggling route. Song Ki sternly reminded Soo-young, "Don't go too far. The decision is up to Song Guk-hee." Ignoring the advice, Young continued to transport an illegal shipment. As expected, the shipment was confiscated at the port. Other merchants' goods were also seized and burned. Anger rose. Korean merchants took to the streets to protest. The protest quickly got out of control. Clashes broke out between protesters and police. Some were injured, many were arrested. Song Guk-hee tried to dissuade them, but no one listened. To save the chaos, Song Guk-hee sought out Kim Jong-un, who, although no longer had any real power, was still nominally the president of the Merchant Association. After meeting him again after so many storms, Kim Jong-un only sneered and said something meaningful. The followers left the temple, not because they didn't like the temple, it was because they didn't like the abbot. Song Guk-hee understood that he had lost people's hearts. However, Kim Jong-un still agreed to help Song Guk-hee convene a meeting of Korean merchants. Before the meeting, Song Guk-hee secretly went to Soo-young. He showed Soo-young the design of the luxury shopping mall he was building and invited Soo-young to cooperate. Song Guk-hee wanted Soo-young to run the luxury shopping mall with him and give up smuggling. They would realize their old dream together. But Soo-young got angry, rejected the invitation, and shouted loudly that Soo-young did not want to continue being Song Guk-hee's underling. At the meeting of the Chamber of Commerce, Song Guk-hee announced that he would use his own own money to compensate for the loss this time. However, he asked everyone to give up smuggling. The proposal was not accepted. Little Kim stood up. He proposed to form a new Korean merchant association to remove Songguk-hee from the old system. He even demanded the right to manage the new commercial district that was being built. Those who had followed Songguk-hee now turned their backs. They demanded shares, demanded power, demanded benefits. The meeting ended in a rift. No one reached an agreement. Songguk-hee realized that he was surrounded by betrayals. After being betrayed by the entire merchant association, Songguk-hee became a target. Not long after, as he was about to get in the car to return home from the clothing market, a huge explosion occurred. The car exploded as soon as the driver pressed key. Guk-hee was thrown far away. Fortunately, he only suffered minor injuries. The explosion shocked the entire merchant community. Soo-young and Little Kim, two rivals of Songguk-hee, immediately fell into suspicion. They had just announced that they wanted to eliminate Songguk-hee when he was almost assassinated. All eyes were on them with suspicion. Unable to bear the pressure, those close to both sides quickly withdrew from Colombia. Even Little Kim secretly fled the country. Everyone was afraid that Songguk-hee would return to take revenge. The truth was that the entire explosion was orchestrated by Songguk-hee. It was a strategic counterattack to break up the rival's internal affairs and assert his position. After that, he went to Soo-young. He gave his old rival one last chance. If he pretended that nothing had happened, he was willing to keep Soo-young's position. But Soo-young went crazy. He shouted, "I will kill you, not just you. I will kill your mother." Immediately, his old friend the acupuncturist rushed over. He used a long needle to stab Soo-young's neck, making him unable to make a sound. Soo-young was knocked down. Songguk-hee and the doctor took his body away and disposed of it. Before filling the hole, Songguk-hee took off the watch Soo-young had given him and threw it into the hole. That action ended their relationship. On the way back, Kim Jong-hun, who had returned to Songguk-hee's side, asked to stop the car to go to the bathroom. While Songguk-hee was sitting in the car, an assassin appeared and shot straight through the window where he was sitting. The bullet did not penetrate the bulletproof glass. But right after that, Kim Jong-hun turned around. He happily introduced to Songguk-hee that the gunman he hired was Alejandro's eldest son. In other words, Songguk-hee and this gunman had a feud over their father's murder. Needless to say, Kim Jong-hun must have hated Songguk-hee all these years. He wanted to take this opportunity to get rid of him. As he spoke, Kim Jong-hun pressed the button to lower the car window. He thought that as soon as the window opened, Songguk-hee would definitely be shot to death. But unexpectedly, as soon as the window rolled down, Songguk-hee pulled out a gun. First, he killed the assassin. Then he turned around and shot Kim Jong-hun. Now, the last one standing is Songguk-hee. He is the only one who survived all the purges. The last one sitting on the throne of power is not the strongest, but the one who dares to kill the most. Today's movie ends here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, and see you again in the next movies.